right, guys, we're ready. Good evening. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order tonight. I would like to recognize one guest, Mr. Ralph Lawson from American Red Cross with us tonight. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate everything you do for us. He stays in touch and helps us when we have weather events or other disasters in the areas. We appreciate you and what you do for us. Thank you. Good to see you tonight. All right, we'll go with roll call, please.
Chuck Angier.
Here.
Tim Duffer.
Here.
Brian Fox.
Here.
Kermit King.
Here.
Bobby Lovelace. Ben Meeks.
Here.
Ronald Scarce.
Here.
Keith Scruggs.
Here.
Bert Sellers.
Here.
All right, as we look at the agenda for tonight, I have one addition I'd like to make, and it's going to be under new business. It'll be you can call it a 3A or a 3.1 or whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be an appointment of an ad hoc committee to address the ARPA funds, which is the $1 million of the Board of Supervisors. I think Chris is going to speak to that, or Ron's going to speak to that later on. But we're going to appoint an ad hoc committee to make sure the application process, how that's going to work through to make sure the funds are allocated to the right places and go to do the right thing and the most good for the most people. So that'll be under number 3, Board of Supervisors Communication for Supervisor Scarce. We'll talk about that ad hoc committee at that point, so we'll add that in the agenda. Any other items that can be added to the agenda tonight need to be added.
You can remove 13.
Yes, we're going to remove number 13. There is no closed session tonight. Yeah, there's no closed session tonight, so we're going to strike item 13 off the agenda. Any other amendments or adjustments to the agenda need to be made? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All right, if you would cast your vote, please. Very good, it's approved. All right, if you would take a moment or two and look over the minutes from the previous meeting from June. All right, as everyone gets finished reading through that, I'll entertain a motion to approve if there's no corrections.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve the June minutes as presented.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. If you would cast your vote, please. Very good, it's approved. All right, presentations. We have none for tonight, thank you, sir. Hearing of the citizens. Each person attending the commission meeting under the hearing of citizens shall be a resident or landowner of the county or registered agent of such resident or landowner. Each person shall step up, give his or her name and district in an audible tone of voice for the record. Unless further time is granted by the chairperson, shall limit his or her address to 3 minutes. No person shall be permitted to address the commission more than once during the hearing of the citizens. All remarks shall be addressed to the commission as a body and not to any individual member thereof. Hearing of the citizens shall last for a maximum of 45 minutes. Any individual that is signed up to speak during said section who does not get the opportunity to do so because of the aforementioned time limit shall be given speaking priority at the next commission meeting. Absent chairman's approval, no person shall be able to speak who has not signed up. Do we have anyone signed up tonight, sir?
No, sir.
No one signed up. Thank you. Fire and Rescue Association report, Chief Fowler.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I'd like to bring up is ask you all, as well as the citizens in the county, keep the responders in mind due to the impact of the pandemic, the lengthy transports due to hospitals being closed. These guys are gone from 1 hour transports, call complete, to some 2 and 3 hours. Just keep that in the back of your mind and keep that in your considerations. And also, on behalf of Fire and Rescue, I'd like to thank them for the approval of the funding from the ARPA funds to be passed through to Fire and Rescue.
Thanks, sir. And I would like to echo that sentiment of thanks to the volunteers and the staff members and all that are having to do those long transports. That can get really tedious. I feel your pain there. All right, county staff report. Director.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. Just a couple items here very quickly. I just want to bring you up to speed on the last capital improvement money that was just in FY22 approved. Mount Cross has purchased the pickup truck that they are going to be using as a brush truck, and that truck has been sent off to have the tank and the pump and the skid unit put in it, and hopefully that'll be back soon and in service. Cascade had a truck that they were looking at. It was a piece of used apparatus, and they did a lot of due diligence on this and found that truck had some issues. They backed away from that purchase, and they are talking with them. I know they've been actively seeking another piece of apparatus, and I believe they've about found something, but I give them credit for doing the due diligence on that. Update on the music festivals. I know everybody's been reading that. We're putting stuff in the newsletter every week about it. Next week will be Labor Day weekend, and that will be the gospel music event they have called Worship on the Mountain. It's going to be relatively small, 2,500, 3,000 people a day. We're going to set up and do what we would be doing for the big event. That's how we're going to kind of using that to work the kinks out of because the following weekend we're going to have almost 30 to 35,000 people a day at the Blue Ridge Music Festival. We're well into the planning process and just about probably 95% complete with our plan. And in fact, I'll be taking some of the fire chiefs there on Friday to look at the grounds if they would have to come in to the event to provide assistance. We'll be having over 30 fire and EMS folks on site a day for that event, and well into the night we'll be having people there overnight. With both our volunteer and our career staff using a little bit of everybody for that. And lastly, just bring you up to speed, a little over a year ago, the Board of Supervisors had directed the Public Safety Department to sell the old Rescue One. We did that back in July, and that money the money from that proceeds going into the apparatus capital fund so we can try to build that fund up for later on. As you know, I've been hoping we'll start being able to give more money for fire and EMS vehicles, and that's one way we're trying to seed that and build that up. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, any unfinished business tonight? All right. New business, item number 1, Fireground Accountability System Guidelines. Director.
Thank you, sir. A couple months back, we worked with the Fire and Rescue Association and the chiefs to develop a fireground accountability system. This is something that the Fire and Rescue Studies had strongly suggested we do, and we've worked out a system. I had some budget money. I was able to pretty much cover the cost of the system, and I think we'll be able to do that going into the future. But this will also bring us in compliance with NFPA 1500 and NFPA 1561 as well. I've attached the guidelines for your review, but need to have that approved by the commission as a matter of record.
All right, if y'all would take a minute and glance through that, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve the attached guidelines. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept these guidelines as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Angier. We have a motion by Mr. Angier. Do we have a second?
My second.
Second by Mr. Duffer. If you would cast your votes, please. All right, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Chris a quick question? It wasn't pertaining to the motion, so I referred to after. When can we expect the passport boards, the accountability boards, Chris, to be sent out to the agencies?
I actually had a discussion with Dean about that just a little while ago. We've got a couple samples we're looking at, and I'm going to give them to him and have some of the chiefs look at and see which one they want to go with, and then we'll get those.
Okay. And just a caveat to this, I think it's just great, and we really need to be looking at forming some sort of writ policy. To my knowledge, we don't have any kind of writ policy in this county. And, you know, we go to these fires every day. We need to have writ established. And a lot of departments do a good job with it, but some still on the same page. That's all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. All right. Item number 2 under new business, SOG allowing non-affiliated EMS providers to operate under the county public safety EMS license. Director?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Recently, we've been approached a couple times, but most recently we were approached by some EMS providers, EMTs, who are members of some of our volunteer fire departments, but those volunteer fire departments are not EMS licensed agencies. So what we had worked out with them is we could allow them to affiliate under our license, so therefore they can practice under our medical director. We'll handle their medical certifications and records, and as well as their continuing education. If you're not affiliated, if you're an EMT just hanging out there, sometimes it can be harder to keep that certification. So this will allow them a little more ease in keeping the certification. It's a matter of just it's a formality of paperwork, and allowing them just to operate under our medical director, so they can practice under that umbrella.
Very good. All right, you have an opportunity to read through that. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the SOG as presented.
I think this is fine and all for somebody that's trying to recertify or keep their hours up, but I think we need to be careful. We have 11 standalone agencies in this county that do EMS. I mean, should we be recommending to those individuals to seek volunteering with one of those departments? And we talk about recruitment and retention. I mean, how's this going to benefit? Are they going to come get on a public safety ambulance? I mean, how's this going to benefit those individuals other than being affiliated so that they can keep their hours up and stuff? I mean, I may be missing something, but just...
So what we need to do is I need a motion and a second, and then we'll go into a discussion phase.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I'll make the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Scruggs. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Scarce. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Okay, Ben.
Sorry about that. I
You're
put the cart
good.
before the
You're good.
horse.
Hey, you're good.
No, I
Have
think it's
button.
the motion's fine. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I may be thinking way off base here. I'm not trying to, anybody that's out there that's inquired this with Chris, I'm not trying to make it more difficult for you to keep your certification. I know how hard it is to get it and then keep it up. But like I said, we have 11 standalone organizations that do EMS transport, and then there's first responders, I'm sure, throughout the county. So shouldn't we at least encourage those individuals to seek, you know what I'm saying, volunteering with one of those departments? And I know some departments have policies, like if they're on a fire department, they can't go run with another agency. But I mean, I encourage our volunteers, if that's your case, if you have somebody that's on your fire department and they're going to volunteer as an EMS provider somewhere else, that's two different things you're doing there. And I know at Gretna we allow our members, and we have members that are fire department members from elsewhere, but they have an EMT license, so they come to Gretna just to run EMS, run duty shifts and stuff to keep their skills up, keep their hours up and Cs and all that. And their fire department chief has no problem with that. We've worked that out. So, like I said, I may be off base. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong, but that's just we need to at least be encouraging these folks when they reach out and saying, hey, I'd like to get under the county and affiliate. Well, you have 11 agencies you can go and affiliate with. Send them to Gretna. I'll take them all day long. So,
We have done that, and that was one of the recommendations or suggestions we also made to them. It is not intended for them to have to get on a public safety ambulance. It's more or less, so a lot of them are out in the very outlying areas. So if they first respond or whatever, hear a call, they can practice under our medical director's license, and like I say, we can help them as far as liability and so forth for that.
So,
It's not intended to take them away from any of the agencies.
Mr. Smith, will some of the deputies who recently got certified fall under this?
We have told the sheriff we will take them, but that's a whole separate issue. But yes, there are deputies that have certified, and we have told him the same thing. We could affiliate them under our license as well and help them with, that way he doesn't have to go get a license. Right. And they can practice under our medical director as well.
Chief.
This may have surfaced as a result of Ringgold and Blair's as well. As you know, we took 640 Rescues area as well as Laurel Groves into the two departments. They've still got some EMTs that they're actually getting calls at home. The neighbors calling so-and-so's having chest pains and they're going. So at the end of the day, we're 20 miles away. They're getting there and we've seen the benefit. So I think it's a good practice and it'll give them an opportunity to have somebody to work with them getting their CE hours and keeping their certification stuff in place.
Chris, do they get issued any type of equipment, radios, anything where they can communicate in those types of
Yeah,
situations?
these are people that are already active members of a department, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And we've opened that up, it's like Dean said, for anybody down there as well.
Yeah, they're already firemen in those areas and they
Gotcha.
just run an EMS because the department doesn't have a license.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
and again, like I said, I appreciate the explanation, Chief. That helped out more. Like I said, I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I mean, obviously, we took over 640 area too in Gretna.
That's right.
It's 18, 20 miles one way for us. So any help we can get, we've told those guys, go ahead, start that early care. But I'm just saying, if, we need to try to continually recruit for these agencies. So tell them, hey, go join a volunteer organization. So.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, if you would cast your vote, please. All right, that's approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 3, Board of Supervisor Communication. Mr. Scarce.
Yes, sir. At the Board of Supervisors' August business meeting, the board decided the following items related to the county's volunteer fire and rescue agencies. Number 1, we voted to approve the release of CIP funds to Cool Branch Fire Department and Cool Branch Rescue Squad to match their fundraising efforts between July 1 and September 30th, 2021, in an amount up to but not to exceed $230,000. Commission, you should be fully aware we've been having a lot of issues with Franklin County Board of Supervisors fairly funding our department that runs over 60% of our calls in their county. And this is a direct result of the citizens of Franklin County who've been really going to town fundraising for Cool Branch. So this is our way of showing our appreciation to what the citizens of Franklin County are doing. Item number 2, we approved $1 million of the county COVID ARPA funds to be directed to eligible uses for volunteer fire and rescue agencies. The board directed the Fire and Rescue Commission to recommend to its Finance Committee the best uses of said funds to benefit the county's volunteer agencies. And I appreciate that you've already set up or plan on having an ad hoc committee. As one issue, we weren't fully aware there's a lot of restrictions put on these ARPA funds, so we're going to really have to look at what we can and cannot approve, but we felt it was appropriate for the Fire and Rescue Commission to make those decisions. Other than that, that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Sellers and myself were talking just prior to the meeting, and we were talking about a lot of the discrepancies and requirements on this money. And Chris and I talked, and it's dozens upon dozens of pages. I told him I started reading something about page 12, I quit because it was too much for me. But so yeah, what I'd like to do, and I've talked to everybody that I'm getting ready to say here to put on this committee. I've talked to each one of them individually to make sure they're good being on the committee, and they understand a little bit of the roles and responsibilities of the application process, understanding the rules of engagement of what it can be used for, not by county restrictions, but by federal restrictions. Because one of the things we need to bear in mind as we go with this committee is this can be audited years down the road, and if it was not spent correctly, the county has to pay every bit of it back. That's $1 million. So we have to make sure that when we spend it right, so we never, if we get audited, we know we're good, we don't have to pay that money back. So what I'd like to do is create an ad hoc committee of Tim Duffer and Kermit King off of the commission. I've spoken to both those gentlemen. They've agreed to serve on that committee. I appreciate that. Of course, Public Safety Director Slimp will be on that committee as well. Thank you. Fire and Rescue Association President Dean Fowler will be on there, and Tommy Barber, Deputy Chief at Mount Hermon Fire and Rescue, who is in Tim Duffer's Southeast Quadrant District, will also be representing on that committee. So, gentlemen, y'all get together and let's get a plan on what we're going to do and come back and make a report to us. Application process, and I know Tim with the city will be very familiar also with a lot of the stipulations, rules, and regulations to be able to help support Chris on that, to make sure that the best decisions are made with the rules and regs and the application process. So thank you for agreeing to serve on that committee. I look forward to hearing what you're going to bring back to us in the near future. Thank you. Item number 4, Climax request for capital reserve funds. Director?
I'll start with this, and I'm going to turn it over to the Chief Smith from Climax in case you have questions. But they have presented an application for the reserve capital to assist with unforeseen, some pretty serious expenses on their 1999 Freightliner. Had a serious catastrophic engine failure. They're faced with well over $6,000 worth of bills or invoices to fix the engine. From reading through all the documentation he gave me, it looks like they had done proper maintenance, so I don't think this is a failure on their behalf. The request is what that fund is for, these type of situations. Under the current policy, they can receive up to $4,000 assistance out of that fund. I've got, in the packet, you'll see all the invoices, and I believe also maintenance records. I'm going to ask the chief to come up to the podium. If you have questions, he's going to answer them for you.
Thank you for being here tonight, Chief. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chief J.T. Smith, Chief of Climax Volunteer Fire Department, serving for this year. In honor of behalf, Chris asked me to come speak with y'all on this engine. This is a 1998 Freightliner. We've owned this truck since 2016. Routine maintenance. Everything's been very good on the truck since we've owned the vehicle. And the previous months, we had a catastrophic engine failure. Had a computer issue. So as far as the documentation listed, had to replace multiple parts on this vehicle. We're requesting funding from the board to help get a little bit of funding back from this. This is our main engine that we run for first due, whether it's fires, car wrecks, whatnot. And thankfully, we do have a secondary engine, and we have go ahead and proceeded with funding to go ahead and get this truck fixed. Although, I don't care whether you're a small department or a large department, anybody that knows anything about a fire service can very much have on my backside that anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000 in repair hurts somebody. I don't care. I mean, we're looking forward for this year. By the end of this year, we're looking at doubling our call volume than we had in the previous years. So the best thing that I could say on behalf of my department is that the more trucks that we have in service, the better we are on to helping our community give the best service that we can. And for the ones that don't know much about Climax, we're located about 9 miles from here. We are a very small rural fire department, although we do serve into, say, Gretna, Chatham, Cool Branch, Callens, we mutual aid to all these areas. So the better we are to have the trucks, then the better we can serve our community. And I can accept any questions that y'all might have in reference to these repairs.
How long will it be before you get the truck back? once the repairs are they completed now? Are they in process now?
It's almost complete now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
to add to what Chief Smith has said, I've frequently visited Climax Fire Department before I came on the commission, and since I've been on the commission, I've visited Climax Fire Department and kept in touch with Chief Smith. And, you know, their engines and their station is kind of immaculate, to say the word. You know, they keep it up. They, you know, nothing's out of place. You know, I visited them several times. But also, speaking from a past chief of Cowlins Fire and Rescue, there hadn't been a time that we hadn't called them that they hadn't put us a truck on the road. So this is, you know, to me, it'll be a well-needed, well-funded project for them because, you know, like I said, we all kind of struggling in the money right now due to COVID and everything that's going on. So I think it'd be wise to fund them on this project.
Chairman, I'd like to speak as well, just to reiterate what Peanut said there. Climax has backed us up many a times, and they always get a truck on the road, bring us people. Like I said, I've been up there many times. Me and JT's been knowing each other since we was little, kind of got into fire service together around about the same time, and so they've always kept their trucks up. Like he said, their building is immaculate. They train, they do a good job. They are a small department. They don't have the community, the residents to pull from a lot for donations and fundraisers, but they do try. And so I definitely think this should be funded. And I encourage the Board of Supervisors, if we pass it through, to fund it as well.
Do they have any kind of warranty on the work that's being done?
I'm not aware of any warranties right now, but I could definitely check on that.
Okay.
So who's doing the work?
What?
Who's doing the work?
It's Eric's Repair out of Cowlins, Virginia.
And so just to be clear, did you say it was a computer or was it an actual engine failure?
So there was multiple issues that they was evaluated with the truck involving between the ECM computer failure, injector failure, the hydraulic oil pump failure, multiple failures inside the engine, which put the truck out of service.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I want to clarify, if you vote to recommend for this funding, needs to come in the form of a recommendation that Mr. Scarce and I would take back to the Finance Committee of the Board of Supervisors for appropriation to it.
Okay.
So does that need a motion?
Yeah,
Yeah, there needs to be a motion to recommend to the board for $4,000.
Tim was going to make it. He said, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make the motion recommending to the board of, that this funding be released under the CRF funds not to exceed $4,000 to assist with the repairs of the truck.
Have a motion by Mr. Duffer,
Second motion.
second by Mr. King. Thank you, gentlemen. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, if you would, cast your vote, please. All right, very good, it's approved. Thank you, Chief, we appreciate your service, thank you. All right, this time matters from commissioners. I'll start with my far right, Mr. Sellers. Anything tonight?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Angier?
Just two comments. I went to the July business meeting at Cool Branch, and I was intrigued when one of the volunteers told me she transported a snake bite from Water's Edge. And she was met there by Franklin County, so there was two of them there, which was okay, everything went fine. But between them, they could only find one dose of antivenom between the two hospitals. So they ended up transporting to Franklin because that's the one that had the one dose in the region. I can't believe that in a region like this, we don't have more snake bite antivenom. And regarding the Climax truck, Captain, is it true that it had 39,000 miles on it? Is it 39,000 miles? That's what I read in the documentation. It's no big deal. I'm amazed that a truck with 39,000 miles needs this kind of repairs. sometimes I wonder if they're not dumping stuff on fire and rescue because you all got to spend money to buy it. And I'm not faulting you at all. It's just something I've observed in the short time I've been on the board here. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. Let's see. Chief Fowler, anything else? Mr. Scarce?
Yeah, I don't want to start a big discussion, but just found out that a lot of the hospitals are diverting ambulances, and I just wonder if somebody could enlighten me a little bit more on that. I believe just about every hospital in the area is diverting at this point. Is that true?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Chris, you want to tackle that one?
Thank you.
Or Tim?
The one thing I can't
Maybe
fix.
Tim?
It
was
is,
on my list too.
several hospitals are, I think COVID is playing a big part of that with extended stay for a lot of the hospitals. And then, one of the problems we have is like at Gretna as an example, it's just a standalone ER. And so when Danville goes on diversion and we start sending everything to Gretna, it doesn't take much to put that ER on diversion. So, I spent last night in emails with the EMS council and some folks at the state at a point, basically saying at what point do I get on the EOC and request a mobile hospital to be set up because it's becoming such an issue. That's the only other answer we have. We have a diversion plan, which we created a little over a year ago because of these type things. That helps, but again, as Chief Fowler said, now instead of maybe him taking the patient to Danville, he may have to take one to Lynchburg or to Eden or to Halifax. So that's just that much longer of a turnaround time we're having. But it is a serious issue. It's one we're pretty much looking at every hour of the day right now because it's up and down. And the only answer we have really is, the only two answers we have is really to go to our diversion plan and keep working with the state to see what relief they might be able to provide us in the short term.
Only piece I'd like to throw in, Mr. Scarce, is also a staffing issue at a lot of the facilities. When we go in and we talk to them, they're just understaffed like most of America is right now. You can't get the people to work. They're just not out there.
I have one follow-up question. Are they prescribing any of the therapeutics to treat people before they have to go into the emergency room? I know in my case in December, they were not. And I had to go online and get the therapeutics, which included hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, to name a couple of the ones that really are effective with COVID, or Chinese virus, as I like to call it. So I would persuade, if you know people that are coming down with this mess, I would try to get them persuaded to go online and find the therapeutics if our hospitals are still not prescribing those. They do work, and I'm proof of that. So I hope the citizens out there will take heed and go to frontlinemds.com or there's multiple websites out there, and I think there are some doctors in town that are prescribing those therapeutics. So instead of waiting till you have to go to the emergency room, try to get those therapeutics and save yourself. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Meeks.
Oh, well, just wanted to add to that conversation. Chris, can you kind of go over, I'm sure it's not much else you can add, but it's kind of concerning. Last night I listened to 33 trying to find a hospital, Halifax, Martinsville, Danville. Gretna was all on diversion. They had to go to either Eden or Lynchburg, ended up going to Eden, which was getting ready to go on diversion as well. And again, it seems like tonight's the same case. There's some major concern there got to be about this rock festival and what happens there. We're adding an extra 30,000 people a day to our system that's already taxed. Y'all kind of thinking ahead on that and pre-planning that, and if you could share any of that with the commissioners.
Sure. I have those same concerns. I can tell you the hospitals have those same concerns. So a couple things we're doing. Number one is, in fact, today we put together a protocol to use alternative care facilities while they're open. So let's say, well, number one, we're going to try to treat what we can at the festival. If you're dehydrated, maybe sick from that or something, if we can treat that in the medical tent, we're going to do it. Let's say you come in, something happened, you cut your arm, you need 5 or 6 stitches. You don't need to be tying up an ER bed for that. So we're going to try to use the alternative care, urgent care facilities for those type of situations. We've talked to our medical director. They're on board with that. We wrote protocol today for that, in fact. So, and one of the other things is, we have an EMS supervisor working down there 24/7. One of their jobs is going to be to check on those hospital facilities pretty much on a regular basis to see what their bed capacity is. We don't want to throw everything at Danville, everything at Gretna if we can help it, because we realize that's going to be an issue. I have serious concerns with that. We've been looking at that way ahead of time to see what we can do, and the alternative care facilities, urgent care is probably one of our best bets. I mean, obviously, somebody has a stroke, they're going to be sent to a stroke center. Cardiac arrest is going to go to Danville. I mean, those type things. But for those low acuity patients, we're going to use some alternative sites to transport to. But I will tell you, it is something I am very concerned about. I'll tell you straight up.
Mr. Slimp, will the venue be responsible for that transport, for those alternative sites? I know insurance companies, they like for you to go to a hospital.
Correct. And I've got, since we're writing a protocol and an SOP for it, I've got Casey checking to see if we can bill for that or not. That's something we're still working out.
I'm just thinking that to me, the venue ought to be, they're bringing that in, they ought to understand that. I mean, take those two, they should be responsible for some of that.
And I agree with you. I went online today and did some more research on transports to those type facilities. And there is some coverage. Some of the insurance companies are starting to cover that a little bit. But again, we're going to make those phone calls ahead of time. And if not, I'll be meeting with the promoter again this week, because I have told them we have serious concerns with this. I got thrown a scenario last week that, what happens if 15 people get food poisoning down there? How are we going to handle that when your hospitals are already overcrowded? So those are all things in the back of my mind, just trying to work out. It's going to potentially create a problem for us.
Right, yeah.
And I take it you've got predetermined LZs up there as well,
yes.
correct? Okay. I figured you had a plan. Like I said, I just want to see if you could share it with the commissioners.
We have predetermined almost everything I can. I've got a couple other people just reviewing that for me today, and then I'm going to probably be sharing that with all y'all, at least the fire chiefs here in the next day or so.
All right. So a couple things, because we hadn't got to have a meeting in 2 months. So thank you for that, Chris. First off, I'd like to send my condolences to Commissioner Scruggs from Gretna and all the fire and rescue agencies. He lost his brother, Kenneth Scruggs, since the last time we was able to meet, and he was a major contributor to fire and rescue in Gretna. He was also the president of the fire department for some time and the captain of the rescue squad there. So again, we appreciate his service and give our condolences to Keith Scruggs.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Second, I would like to thank all the volunteer fire and rescue agencies for working hard over the last couple months. We've had many bad fires and wrecks, extrications, things of that nature. And I know we had the incident up at the nursing home recently, and it was just reassuring. I hope we don't have to ever see it again, but it was reassuring to see within a 7-day period 3 ladder trucks there in the air with staffing on them. So that was impressive, and just proves again how valuable our volunteers are and the work they do. Again, the situations up there ended up not being as bad as we thought, but it's still, we appreciate all the help mitigating those things. Also, to reiterate what Chief Fowler was saying, I've got 3 providers right now that have coronavirus. One of them was vaccinated and still got it. So just remind you guys and girls to wear their PPE. Lynchburg, last time I had my outreach meeting with them, they have 18 intubated in Lynchburg General right now. So that's where a lot of these diversions are coming as well, because their staffing is being pushed so hard towards that, it's hard to treat other things. So keep that in mind and just try your best to decon your stations and limit who you send in. I know Chris sends it out in the newsletter. If you can send one provider in and kind of assess the situation before the whole crew comes in, get them out of that house, you just kind of some open, fresh air. I understand every situation is different, though. And the last thing I'd like to say, I think this body needs to be meeting every month. I know we missed last month's meeting. I understand there wasn't much to be talked about, and a decision was made not to meet. But the Fire and Rescue Association, the Board of Supervisors, the volunteer agencies, they meet every month. I feel like this body is going to get behind if we start skipping meetings. So I just recommend, even if we're here 20 minutes and leave, at least keeps everybody up to date. That's all I have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Duffer.
Two things. Just first is I want to thank all the volunteers too. I know with the COVID pandemic, it is really taxing on a lot of them. That was one of the conversations I had with one of the hospitals today, as well as their staffing levels are low, mainly because a lot of their tenured staff are they're done. They're fed up with it. And I have a feeling that some volunteers are going to get to that point as well because of the increased transport times, whatever it may be, they're getting fed up with it. I just want to thank all of the volunteers for that. Let's just try to make it through it. The other thing that I wanted to see is I had a opportunity. I had to come before the zoning commission last month, and I wanted to add this or recommend that we add this to our agenda. One of the things right before that zoning commission is they had as part of their agenda, they had a moment of silence, and then they had the Pledge of Allegiance. And I just feel like that, I think the Board of Supervisors does that as well, and I don't think that we should be any different. So I would like to recommend that all future meetings, we add that to our agenda. That's all.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you, sir. Mr. King.
Oh, yes, Mr. Duffer, that's excellent idea. But first off, I'd like to start, Keith, sorry for you lost Brother Kenny. I, for one, has actually ran calls, probably me and you, the only two sitting up here that's actually ran calls with Kenny. And I had classes with Kenny. He's, good guy, class act all the way. Like I said, thank all the volunteers and the public safety for the job they did and continue to stay safe during the pandemic. Also, take the time to thank your board for allocating the funds to matching Cool Branch and also the $1 million to the fire and rescue. Thank you. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
Yeah, so just to echo a lot of that, I'd like to say a public thank you also to Joe Davis on the Finance Committee and the Board of Supervisors. I think that was just a huge gesture to come up with that $1 million that we can spend. So just a huge thank you to those guys for doing that.
I've just got three things. I would like to echo the sentiment to Keith. He and I talked several times over the last weeks. I remember his brother from back in the 90s, back when all the competition, Tommy Barber, we were doing a lot of competition back in those days with Danville. And I remember his being instrumental in Gretna a long time ago. He'll definitely be missed, and his contributions will never be forgotten. The other thing I'd like to do, I'd like to take a minute and thank Cascade. I'd like to thank you for doing your due diligence and being a good steward of those funds and not just buying the first truck that came along. I commend y'all for that. It's easy sometimes to get what's right there in front of you, but y'all did your extra diligence, proved the truck wasn't worth it, brought your money back home. Thank you for that. That speaks volumes to y'all's credibility down there in Cascade. Thank you for doing that, being a good steward of the money. I'd also like to thank the gentleman that agreed to serve on the ad hoc committee for the ARPA funds. Again, look forward to seeing what y'all going to bring back. Volunteers, we couldn't do without you. That's all I can say. We couldn't do without you. Every one of you appreciated beyond words. Thank you for what you do. Again, Mr. Lawson, thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate seeing you. I know the pandemic's wearing y'all out too. But that's all I've got. If anybody has anything else, we'll make a motion to adjourn. All right. See y'all next month. Thank you.